E. Jean Carroll not taking any shouted questions while leaving a New York courtroom after a jury ruled Donald Trump owes her $83.3 million in compensatory and punitive damage. Donald Trump himself vowing to appeal that verdict, and that could take some time. Tom Dupree joins us right now, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. He doesn't have to pay anything until all appeals are exhausted, but my understanding, Tom, something like that could take quite a long time, years, right?
Neil, that's exactly right. I mean, the former president does have a right to appeal. He can appeal this to the Second Circuit, which is the federal appeals court that oversees trials that happen in Manhattan. And then potentially he could at least try to get this appeal to the United States Supreme Court. So he's got some cards left to play. And I do think the appeals process is going to stretch on for a number of years. And yes, the general rule is as long as you provide some sort of collateral or security or bond that can cover the amount of the verdict, you don't actually have to pay it. So he could still be years away potentially from having to pay E. Jean Carroll.
All right. This was all because he kept talking about the case after the original verdict against him and he had to pay the $5 million. Could you explain that and why he's in the pickle he's in now?
Sure. Well, I think the court in its prior case basically said you can't make these types of statements. And the former president continued to comment, continued to publicly speak, continued to tweet. And I think that E. Jean Carroll's lawyers basically said the only way to the jury, the only way you can get him to stop doing this is to hit him with a substantial award. And the award that they rendered yesterday was staggering. It's more than $80 million, including about $65 million in punitive damages, which again is somewhat extraordinary, but this is an extraordinary case. And I think from the judge's perspective and the jury's perspective, this was the only possible way to get the former president to stop making these types of defamatory statements.
But, you know, I know the legal kind of details on this and what someone can and can't do in the face of a decision like this. But if you're protesting to the hills, as the president has for years now, that this never occurred, and you're shocked when a guilty verdict was rendered for something you swear in a stack of Bibles you never did. Can you understand his rage at this? Because every time, you know, he made a point of getting to that court and being there just to see this unfold, you did get the impression, a lot of backers said he got the impression that this case was particularly important to him, and for that very reason. So does and do future appeal courts, if it goes further, weigh that there is a balance there, what you can and can't say? You can't be derogatory and call her names, I get that. But what is that balance?
Yeah, and it can be a tough balance to strike, Neil. I think in this case, the prior orders basically said you can't make defamatory statements, attacking E. Jean Carroll, making statements that, she's crazy, she made it up, this didn't happen. But to your point, if you are in a position where you think you've been unjustly accused, you want to proclaim your innocence. So I think there is a line to walk there. And I think that an appeals court would be sensitive that you can't punish someone for exercising their First Amendment rights or proclaiming innocence, but that just can't cross the line into attacks, into defamatory statements, right, and things that the jury heard about. So I suspect that will be a big part of what the former president argues on appeal, but I'm not sure that the Court of Appeals is going to see it his way. My sense is they are probably going to be fairly deferential to what the jury decided. I think they will raise their eyebrows at the amount of the award. Maybe they'll reduce it, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle if he wants to get this entire thing overruled.
Well, you just answered my next question, which was, can they reduce it? Forget about wiping it out, but go back and say, well, that $5 million one was good, or the $12 million that they were initially pursuing, E. Jean Carroll's people, post his remarks, and that's fine. But this amount is off the charts.
Yeah, Neil, and that's exactly what I would be arguing if I were representing the former president here, is I would not put my attention on what are called compensatory damages. Those are the money the jury determined was economically necessary to help restore E. Jean Carroll's reputation. Instead, what I would do is target the punitive damage award, $65 million, and basically say that this is excessive. This is unconstitutional. This is an extremely large amount. It wasn't necessary to punish the president or to deter him in the future, and a lower amount would succeed in those objectives.
Fascinating. Tom, we'll see what happens, my friend. A lot of cases there to weigh back and forth. Tom Dupree on this particular one that could be years away from being totally resolved.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.